Okay, we're back in selections using paths tutorial. In this video, we will clean up the paths to make them outline the shape as perfect as possible and get it ready to use as a selection. As you can see here, my path is not outlining the robot exactly. So I recommend going back to your starting point and clean up the paths by adjusting the anchor point locations, changing the curves by manipulating the handles, and adding or subtracting anchors as needed. Let's get started, and while I'm cleaning this up, I'd like to address some issues and best practices to speed up your work. Okay, so I'm going to be using the pen tool and also my selection tool. Okay, the skill is a highly marketable one. I'm going to start at the very beginning where I was. Okay. And students ask me all the time, how perfect or good does this actually need to be? Well, I would have to say I'm extremely picky about the quality of the work, and so is your client. So just enough, if that is your mindset on, is it just enough, then you need to change your mindset. Okay. So we need to get as close to perfect as possible. So I'm zooming in using the Command or Control plus or Command Control minus, whichever you're working on, a Macintosh or a PC. You can see me here pulling these handles out and adjusting what I've got here. Okay, so I'm saving as I go along too, because once in a while we need to save. And I already have the outline named and saved as a path, but that doesn't mean our Photoshop file is not already saved. So I do want to save that periodically. Okay, so as we go along, you can see here we're saving it. Alright, and I'm also, while I'm going along, you'll notice that I'm not diving back into the pen tool all the time or the direct selection tool. I'm actually using the pen tool and key commands only to switch back and forth between the tools. So let the pen tool do all of the work for you. And I would say, first of all, you're going to select the pen tool to use for this task, and we're going to go in a clockwise direction as I did when I first laid down these points. You can use the pen tool itself if you hover over an area where you've got an anchor point and you want to delete that anchor point. Just use your pen tool and hover over it. You can see that the pen tool has changed to the subtract pen tool, and I can click on it and there it goes. Okay, I'm going to undo that. I can also go back into this, and if I need another anchor point, and sometimes it can be deceiving if you need some anchor points or not, like as in, if I need an extra one in some of the detail here, for instance, maybe an extra one here, maybe an extra one along the side here. All I have to do is hover over the path, and my pen tool becomes an add anchor point tool. So it can add an anchor point to that, and then finally I can use the either the option on a Macintosh or the Alt key on a Windows key, and then it becomes my convert anchor point tool. And so I could click and make it into a corner, or if I click and drag, I can redo or make a curve, and I can also take one of the handles and click and drag, it becomes 2 anchor points. Okay, I don't exactly need that right here, but it just goes to show what it is that we can do to speed up our process. Okay, so if I go all the way around, I'm going to clean this up a little bit. Then the last thing is how do I get it so that I move my anchor points while I'm still using the pen tool? And that's a matter of simply using the command for Macintosh or hold down the control key on Windows. And you see here it becomes actually flips back and forth between my pen tool and the selection tool. Now it works for getting the direct selection tool if you have already set before working the direct selection tool. So the path selection or direct selection tool, whichever one you want to use, and for moving anchor points we need to use the direct selection tool. So I set that into place, and then for the duration of my cleanup I've got the pen tool available. I'm also using the spacebar key to navigate myself around, and I just need to kind of move and clean these anchor points up, and some of my curve work is not good. So I click here, I'm going to pull this anchor out, move myself over, and I start to work actually much quicker using these particular tools. Check both sides. Yeah, that's too high. Okay, maybe the curve is too much. Push that in a little bit. Alright, and start moving my anchor points. Now you kind of want to go in between. You see here the something like the background and the object. We've got like a jagged edge here. I recommend kind of going in between as far as the object and its background because there's some things that we can do to create a softer edge, which we'll do in the next video. Okay, so as you work along, go all the way around in one direction, okay, and until you get all the way around and to the last anchor point, or your starting point in other words, and zoom in and out as you need. Don't do this task if you're too far out from where you need to be. Okay, in the next lesson we will finish out this cleanup. I'll have one that's already cleaned up, and we're going to turn it into a selection and make it into a mask.